Okay, welcome to 12.3's weekly ACT training sessions. Today's topic is the ACT history list, which is one of my favorite new features. It was added in V16 2 years ago. So if you have V16, 17, or 18, you have this feature. Kind of split over it. Sometimes I'm real happy they put it in, and sometimes I'm really annoyed they didn't put it in 10 years ago. But it's a good feature. It's worth learning. There's a couple of reasons why this is good. The first one is you can get good activity reporting from it. The second one is it helps you clean up your database and keeps your database from getting big and hairy. I'm going to show you both of those tricks. We are using the ACT 2016 demo database. It's at the top here. This is the database that comes with everybody's ACT. It's a very small database. It's got some old data from 2015 in it. It's only got 200 records, but it's good for training purposes. So you're going to see some of the dates and names here just don't make a lot of sense. It's because it's pretend data. So the ACT history list is a list of all the history records that go into ACT. And there's a button over here called History List. I'm going to click on it. And you get this. We're going to go into detail what you have here. Now, there's a little filter bar right at the top here, excuse me, and this can filter out the histories. It's not uncommon that a database can have 1 million history records in it. If you've got 10,000 contacts and you've done 100 things with them, that's 1 million records in history. So right now I've got it filtered by, there's 4 fields you can filter on: dates, types, keywords, and users. We will pick, I'm going to go to all dates here because, again, nobody's put anything in the last 7 days, so it's an empty list. I'm going to change my date range to all dates. I'm going to change my types to all types. I'm going to change my users to all users. There's only one user in this database. That's a bad thing about a demo database. But I can pick selected users. So now I'm looking at all the histories in the system, and in this little pretend database there's only 800. This may take a little while for it to run on your system. There could be 1 million records, but this is a reverse chronological listing of all the activities that went into the system. And just to demonstrate that, I'll go into contacts here. I'll find a contact. Herman Getter at Continental Energy, and I will add a history. I will pretend that we met. So I go to meeting held. It's today for an hour. Did a web class for Herman. So that is a history. Don't worry about that. That's some add-in software that this database wasn't set up for. If I go to history, we can see in Herman's record that Chris Huffman did a meeting today. Of course, these history records are sprinkled all over the database in the contacts that you did them with. But if I go back to the history list, the newest entry up top here is March 8th, and it's Herman, and it shows that Chris did a meeting. So all histories go here in a list. Let's talk about the filter block a little bit. Normally, you don't want to see everything in the history list. You might only want to see the last 7 days, in which case our only thing we did in this database was the meeting with Herman. Maybe you want to see the last month, which is the month of February. These were all the activities that happened. So you can pick a date range. Under types, let me go back to all dates here. Under types, there's different kinds of histories, and some histories are very meaningful. Like here it says meeting held, here it says call completed, but then there's stuff in here like access changed. In other words, we changed the access to a record. We made it private, or we limited. Here's a history type called contact linked, where we linked this record to a company, and you might not care about those. Here's a data moved. You might see stuff about vacations. So you can actually go into types here, and it gets very granular. You might say, I don't care about emails. I don't care about system changes. I don't care about e-marketing stuff. I don't care about attached files. And if I go into activities here, I can get very granular. Maybe I don't want to see vacations and personal activities. I only want to see calls and meetings. And so if I do that, I can restrict this list. And now I'm only seeing meetings and calls. Oh, there's opportunity stuff here. We should get rid of that. Turn off opportunities. So you can filter this list by certain types of activities. And not only that, if I go down to calls, I can open up the calls here and say, I don't want to see the attempted calls or the left messages. I just want to see completed and received calls. And the same with like meetings. If a meeting was not held, I don't want to see it. So you can actually go down to the result level and again, trim this down to just what you want to see. Unfortunately, under users, we only have one user in this system, but under selected users, I could just pick off the people I want to see. Maybe I only want to see the activities of the people on my team or of one person, and that's where you would do it, or you can see everybody's. And finally, I can limit the list by a word, and like I see a word here called Asia Pac, and what I could do is just search for only histories that have that word. I say go, and now I only see the activities that have that word in it. That can be useful. Maybe I want to go back all dates, but people, oops, it got noisy. Thank you, Paul. I just muted myself. I muted everybody, and that included me. Okay, Sarah, I had to mute everybody. Somebody jumped on, and it was terribly noisy. So what I was talking about was I used a keyword here, Asia Pac, and now I'm only showing the history records that have that word in it. That word could be in the regarding, it could be in the notes, it could be in a person's name, anywhere. So the main use for this keyword field is we could have we could put in like one of our products names and say, I want to see all the emails and phone calls regarding this particular product. And, or maybe if I'm a distributor, I want to see all my activity related to a certain line that I sell. For me, it might be all ACT-related phone calls. We also sell Goldmine and Zoho, and maybe I want to see Zoho-related calls or Goldmine-related calls. So you can filter by when it happened, what type of activity it was, by the user, and also by a keyword. I'm going to take the keyword out. I'm going to go back to what happened last month. So I'm going to go back to, well, we'll do the last 90 days. So here's all the activity for the last 90 days. And again, we selected out just meetings and calls and to-dos. I didn't want to see all the emails and stuff. So you go, that's an interesting little report. I'd like to see the details. Again, whenever you are in ACT and you see what, this is called a list view or a grid. Some people call it a grid. You can customize the columns, and so that's a button right here called Customize Columns. If you don't want to click on mouse buttons, over here under Options, it says Customize Columns. Two ways to get there. Here are the columns we're showing, and here are the columns we could show. And so this attachments, this little paperclip column here tells me if there's a file attached. I don't care about that, so I'll highlight it, and I'll hit this arrow, and I'll get it off the report. But maybe I do want to see, oh, the details are there. What else do I want to see? I don't know, the email address, which is kind of silly. You know what? I'm going to take regarding off, and I'm going to take details off. And there's a field here called regarding and details. It's kind of just a custom formula field. And I will put that in right after the person's result. So I'm going to move that up. So I've picked my fields here. Say OK, and now I have the regarding and details needs to be made wider. I like that. So this has my notes in it as well of every activity. So I can customize the columns. Finally, once I get this the columns I want and the activities I want, there's a little Excel button here. I click on that and it will dump this to Excel. So I can now send this report to someone else. So here's all the activity based around a product or based around a principle, or here's what I did last week. I'm waiting for my Excel to pop up here. Coming slow. Okay, here's Excel, and I'll bring it over from my other screen. There's my report with the columns I requested. So that's why I showed you the customized columns feature. If you want to add a column to this Excel report, you got to get it on the screen first. Whatever's on the screen is what winds up in Excel. But now you can send this to somebody. So it's a quick way of running a report. I could show you the old way of doing it with a notes history report. It really stunk. This is much better. Plus in Excel, we all know we can fudge some stuff here, so I could say, oh, this is really a 3-day meeting. And now nobody's the wiser. So I'll close the Excel sheet. And so that's kind of an overview of the history report. And like I said, to me, there's two main purposes to this. The first one is to find out what happened yesterday, or what did Chris do for the last 30 days. Let me see all of his meetings. Another good use of this is for data cleanup. And I'll show you, we saw earlier, if I go back to all record types, and I go back to all dates, we get a lot of stuff in here, like contact updated or contact linked. And if you see my history database, so let me once again state that you have all these different tables in ACT. And the history one tends to be the largest one. Not in the demo database, but I guarantee you in your database, your history table is big. And that's because, you know, for every person you have in the database, you might have 100 emails or 10 meetings or, you know, all kinds of things in there, phone calls. So it's common for me to see 10,000 names in the database, but 1 million records or 2 million records, especially if you've been using ACT for a long time. So a lot of these history records don't really mean a lot, like contact linked or field change. This just tells me that Chris Huffman back on January changed the ID status from customer to competitor. So what I can do is I can go in and say, find me all of the, I'm going to turn this to none, and I only want to see under system changes, you got to dig a little bit, but there's like a contact linked. I only want to see contact links. It's the only thing I'm looking at. And now there they all are, and there's 36 of them. And this is kind of low tech, but I'll just highlight them all using Shift down arrow, and I hit the delete key, and I get rid of them. A common one is the contact deleted, which is under contact changes right here. I should talk about that for a minute for two reasons. If I go look up my record, I'm logged in this database as Chris Huffman, and you'll see that, let me create a new record here. So I'm going to create a new guy called Pete Moss, and he's a competitor. So I save that, and now I have this guy in the database. Now I'm going to delete Pete. So I go to Contacts, Delete Contact, and I'll delete the contact. It says yes, warns me off it. Pete is now gone. Why don't I see that there? Did I not save him? Hold on. Should be in the history list. Not there. All right, I got to do this one more time because now I'm concerned. Let us go to contacts. Add a new guy. We'll call him Scott Towell. Let me save that. Make sure I can find Scott. Yeah, he's really there. Oh, we got 2 of them. Well, I'll take this one here, and I will delete it. And I just got unlinked, but let me go back to my record, look up all records, my record, contact deleted. So this will happen if you do a lot of database cleanup. Say you go in your database and you delete 2,000 old records. It's going to put in your history the person. I can't put it in Scott Towell's record because he's gone. So it puts it in the person who deleted it, that Chris Huffman deleted this record at this date at this time. And so it's quite possible if you're the ACT administrator at your company that you have hundreds or thousands of these contact deleteds. And another thing is when ACT loads up, as you know, when you first open up ACT in the morning, the first record it takes you to is you. This is true of every user. And you'll find if you go to your record and you go to the history tab, down here it tells you how many histories you have. I've seen 30,000 records in here. That can really slow down ACT's loading. It has to load up all these contact deleteds and stuff. So I like to go to the history list, find all the contact deleteds. I go down here at the contact changes, contact deleted, and here they all are. And these were all deleted back. And you might want to keep the recent ones just for auditing purposes, but the stuff that was deleted 10 years ago, you don't need it in the database anymore. So you highlight them and you delete them, and now your record in ACT is not so fat. It will load a little bit faster. So you can go in and find certain activity types. You might say, I don't care about emails from 10 years ago. Keep the meetings, but let's find all the emails. And so you go and turn emails on. In the date range here, I can actually go down to custom date range and say, show me everything from 1/1/2000 to 2010. There's nothing there, but maybe in 2012 there is. Nope. Let me turn everything on. Wow, that's weird. Let's make it 2014. I guess this database, it's a demo database. I guarantee you my database has a lot of stuff in it from 2012. So you could start getting rid of some of it. You know, of course, be careful that the minute you delete something, the next day is when you need it. But there really is a lot of old emails that you could probably get rid of, and phone calls. You know, I had a client, they were complaining about database speed and size, and they had phone calls from 1996 and 7 in there. You know, many. And it's been sitting there. It syncs around. It gets backed up every night. You know, there's a cost to it. So that's the history list. As I said, there's 2 reasons. One is for reporting, which this Excel report is nice. You can just spit out, here's all the meetings I did last month, or here's all the phone calls I made last month. And then the other thing you can do is you can find certain kinds of history, pick a date range, pick a type, and then select them and delete them. It's a little bit tedious, but you can pick out just the kinds of activities you want to get rid of. So if anybody has any questions, I'll take them now. And we're 9 minutes early, which is really rare. I hope I went through this at the right speed. I will stop recording now.